Hello, welcome to Classical Greek Latin. My name is Josh and I am the teacher for this course. This is the Latin lesson 5 and we are in chapter 4, right? So our lesson numbers and chapter numbers vary because we had the introduction lesson, which was our lesson 1, of course. So this is a Latin lesson 5, chapter 4. Last lesson, a lesson 4, we talked about the second declension masculine. So we're going to talk about the second declension masculine, or excuse me, we're going to talk about the second declension, but for the neutered form. So there's not going to be a lot of information there. So Wheelock has taken the opportunity, therefore, to teach some new ideas, which are not overly complicated. But we're going to talk about adjectives, and we're going to talk about the verb to be, I am, sum, and then predicate nominatives, which we'll get to that. It may sound scary, but it's very easy actually. And then substantives are also, it's a very simple concept. But let's jump in real quick. I'm going to try and keep this lesson short this week. And let's just talk about the second declension. Okay, so again, a declension just refers to a falling away or a falling down from your nominative, genitive, dative down all the way to your ablative. Now you note they dropped the vocative case here. The vocative is still relevant, but they showed it to you last chapter so that you could see it. And from here on out, they're not going to be including the vocative just because it's so rarely used. We don't need to write it out every time. All right. When you see the vocative, you'll know it's vocative just from context. So we go from nominative, this declension, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. Every declension follows that order. And that's just a refresher. We've already gone over that. So we have here neutered nouns here. Donum, consilium, and then magnum is an adjective. Okay. So let's focus on donum and consilium. So here, what they're doing, they give you the definition, what it means. Gift, donum, plan, consilium, right? And then they give you what is here the stem of the word. Let me zoom in a little more for you. Okay, so they give you the stem of the word, which for donum is don. Now they get that by looking at the genitive and dropping the genitive ending, which here is E. Okay, and remember I'm pronouncing these vowels as they are sound in Latin. So it's an English I. All right, and that's the genitive. Genitive singular, they drop the E sound on the end, which is the inflection indicating the case, which is genitive here, and then you're left with the stem, which is don. Okay, so that is the stem upon which we add the inflections on. So I, o, o in the singular, and then in the plural you have the a, orum, is, a, is, all added to don, which is the root or the stem of that word. Okay, so that's what they're telling you. And we'll cover that a little later. I was thinking about how it appears in the dictionary, but he covers that a little later in this chapter. So we'll get to that in a second. All right, consilium. Now here you have in the E, or the I in English. When you come to the genitive, that might present confusion. Do we add another I sound, or E? Or do we just let the E of the stem serve as the genitive? So, truth be told, in ancient Rome, the Romans did both. Sometimes they would double up the E sound, like here, consilii, E, and sometimes they would just leave it as consilii for the genitive singular. Okay, Wheelock is nice to us, and he always includes the full form with the double E here. So that is when so we look at the genitive, right? So we have consilii. We know the second E sound is part of the genitive case. So we're going to drop that, and now we have just concilii, like here, and that is the stem or root of the word to which we're going to add everything else. So we now have I, o, o, and then in the plural, now this is going to be new. I'll go through it quickly. A, orum, is, a, is. Okay, so we're adding all those endings to concilii, which is the root of the word. Okay, so that's what they're showing us here, and then with the N there on the end. Same idea with an adjective there. Okay, so let's look at the neutered endings here. Now, you may have noticed that the neutered and the masculine look very similar, right? So the only thing where the masculine is going to be different here is going to be in the nominative singular. You're going to have us, right? And in the neutered, you have the okay? So let me just clarify here. This is masculine over here, okay? So the us here, but otherwise, the masculine is e in the genitive. In the dative singular, it is o. In the accusative singular, it is and in the ablative singular, it is o. So the only place that the neutered is different in the singular declension is the nominative singular. Okay, so again, to point out the obvious, in the neutered gender, the nominative and the accusative are always going to be the same. Okay, that is to say that the subject and the direct object in the neutered case is indistinguishable except from context, what makes the most sense. Okay, all right, so let's now look at the plural. So again, everything over here is going to be the same as in the masculine, okay? Except here, the masculine is going to be the e for nominative plural, and it's going to be os for accusative plural. Okay? So in the Latin, in the neutered, you have the a for the nominative plural, and then again, the exact same thing in the accusative plural as in the nominative plural is a. Otherwise, everything else is the same as what you learned for the masculine. Orum, is, right? Genitive plural, dative plural, and then ablative plural, with the nominative and accusative being the same in the neutered. So let's just flip back to the full declension in the masculine to see that. So you have the visual. Okay. So here we have the masculine endings, right? Us, e, o, o, and then the evocative is there, which we're not covering right now. And then that's the singular, and then you have the plural. Okay. Right, so this is the masculine in the plural. E, orum, and that's the same as in the neutered. Is, same as in the neutered. Os, different than neutered. A in the neutered. And then is in the ablative, okay? And we're not really concerned about the vocative anymore. So we'll just draw a line like that, okay? So not a lot to learn. You're really only learning the endings for the neutered, 3 new endings. You have the for the nominative singular. Let me get there so we have the visual also. The for the nominative singular, that is new. And then the nominative and plural, the nominative and accusative plural, a, those are new. Everything else is the same as the masculine, all right? So make sure you memorize the second declension for the neutered as well, and it'll make your life easy, okay? So this next paragraph here on page 33, they're just talking about, we talked about this already, how sometimes in real Latin, when we start reading, or when you start reading text in Latin, you will see, for example, concilii, or sometimes concilii, and both of those forms are going to be the genitive case. And for whatever reason, authors in ancient Rome would write it both ways. But again, Wheelock is being nice to us, and he's going to keep it consistent with just adding the case ending e in addition to an e, like a filii, when an e is already on the root of the word. So it's going to look like a double I in English, right? Okay, so now dictionary entries. We talked about that. I said we'd get to it in a second, so we're getting to it now. So in the last couple chapters, they presented the vocabulary to you like this: donum, doni. Okay, and then they give you the gender. It's neutered, right? So if it were masculine, it would be an M, and when it's feminine, it will be F, right? Now, when you see in this, you'll see the vocab in this chapter. He's going to present it abbreviated. All right, so it's going to be abbreviated now from here on out, which is how you'll see it in the dictionary. But it's the same concept, right? So you have donum, and then you have the e, signifying the genitive. And what this tells you is that this comes from the second declension. When we go on to other declensions, this will be important to know which declension this word comes from, or how we should decline it, how it's inflected for each of the cases. All right, so, but that's how you'll see it. Donum, the nominative form, and then the genitive case ending, and then the gender marker will still be there, in for neuter, for example. Okay. Declensions and agreement of adjectives. So let's talk about agreement of adjectives. So you notice here they're adding feminine. Okay. So there is nouns can be masculine, they can be feminine, or they can be neither masculine nor feminine. They can be neuter, which means neither in Latin, or neutered, right? So magnus means great or big, for example. So the masculine form of magnus, now that is an adjective, of course, is us in the nominative, for example. Okay, and then you know the case endings for the masculine, and the singular and the plural. All right, and now we've just learned the neutered endings. So we have right, in the nominative, and then you have your case endings all the way through the singular and the plural. Okay, and then as you've seen before, we also have the feminine here. So you have your feminine endings there. So I, ah. There's the vocative, and then so on. But you're familiar with this, okay? All right, so the idea here is agreement of adjectives. What that means is, we've talked about this a little bit already. If you have, for example, boy, puer, right? It's going to be, if you want to say a big boy, a large boy, it's going to be puer magnus, right? So it cannot be puer magna, and it cannot be puer magnum, because boy is masculine, its adjective has to be masculine, okay? Boy, puer, cannot change its gender. It's always going to be masculine. It's a noun. Even nouns that don't apparently have an inherent gender to them, like boy or girl, for example, will come with a gender and will never change that gender. Therefore, when that noun is being described by an adjective like magnus, magna, magnum, the adjective, for example, magnus, will change its gender to match whichever noun it happens to be modifying or describing in that moment, okay? So if we want to say the big girl, we would say puella magna. We could not say puella magnus. That would be incoherent, right? So the girl is feminine. The adjective describing her also has to be feminine, okay? And then let's say donum, right? If we say donum is gift, it's neutered. The large gift, where it's gonna, the gift, the large part is gonna also have to be neutered. Okay, so they match. All right, let's see here. And now, so that's pretty straightforward, I think. And that, you'll get more used to that. It's very simple. All right, so when you look in a dictionary, we talked about how nouns appear in a dictionary, right? So you see donum, and then the genitive ending here, e, and then the gender, neutered. You know that's a noun. All right, the dictionary doesn't have to tell you that's a noun. It has one gender and it can never change. However, when you see an adjective in the dictionary, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have magnus as the nominative singular masculine form. That will always be listed as the main entry. And then it will give you its possible other genders, which are the other two, feminine and neutered. So magnus, and then magna, magnum, right? So they're just giving you the endings of the nominative singular, magna, magnum, and they're abbreviating it for you there. Okay, same thing with meus, right? Meus means my, mine, which is in this instance is acting like an adjective. Okay, Onward to sum. Okay. So sum is I am. Okay. So it's a verb. It's the to be verb. All right. And we're also going to cover the infinitive with that. So let's take a look at that. So the infinitive of sum is esse. So sum is an irregular verb, right? So you have esse here, and then you have, which is just to be. It's not saying any person, any one person, either first, second, or third. Now, we've talked about verbs before, so this is probably jogging your memory going back a couple chapters. But an infinite or infinitive does not refer to any person. It doesn't refer to me, I, you, or he, or we, or you all, or they. It's just to be, okay? And then here, you get the personal endings of this verb, right? So sum, I am, es, you are, est, he, she, it is. Sumus, we are, estis, you are, you all are as plural. And then sunt, they are, okay? All right, so simply just make sure you memorize this chart. The to be verb comes up all the time. You'll see it all the time, okay? Now let's go to predicate nouns, okay? Predicate nouns, all that's talking about is, let's just go straight to the examples here. A predicate is a noun or adjective that speaks, right? Speaks for something, or it speaks on behalf, right? So Virgil is a friend, okay? So that is a predicate noun speaking for Virgil to describe him, okay? So Virgil is, you could say, the friend of Augustus or a friend of Augustus, right? Context would tell you how to translate that because Latin does not have a definite article, the, like we do in English, right? So predicate nouns or adjectives are always linked to the noun they are modifying by a linking verb, okay? That is a to be verb, right? So est here, third person singular of sum. Est. He is. So Virgil is a friend, or is a friend, or the friend of Augustus, right? Augustus there is genitive, so of Augustus. Now note, important here, Virgil is nominative. The word describing him and being linked to him as a predicate also has to be nominative, okay? So the verb sum, esse, I am, to be, does not take a direct object. Therefore, the subject of the to be verb, in this case it's Virgil, he's not going to be and then be something to a direct object. He's going to be something describing himself, reflecting back to himself in the nominative case, just like he is in the nominative case. I think that makes sense. So if you have questions on that, put that in the comments below and I'll help you out with those. All right, so this just goes on and shows you Virgil is a poet, okay? So here, now remember, poeta looks feminine, but it is masculine. And this is nominative singular masculine, okay? This is nominative singular masculine, and then being linked by a third person singular verb. So keep that also in mind too. Let's go to amicae sunt bonae. So the girlfriends are good. Now this could be dative or genitive or dative singular, but context tells us to translate this as nominative plural because you have a plural verb, right? And a plural verb requires a plural subject, or to say it the other way, a plural subject requires a plural verb. So you have girlfriends in the plural, sunt, they are, bonae, okay, good, bonae, good. plural, boni, plural, amicas. Okay. Nominative, plural, feminine. Nominative, plural, feminine, linked with a to be verb, third person plural. Okay. All right. Let's look. I think you get the idea there. Let's look at sumus. That's maybe less than direct. So sumus, you think about that. That is, sumus is we are, right? We are Romans, so it's going to be, Romani is going to be nominative because it has to be, because it's with the linking verb, and the subject of the verb here is being implied, right? It's not outright stated, it's implied because sumus is first person. So we know the subject is we, right? But it's only implied there by the verb sumus. All right. So because the subject is plural, again, the Romani is going to be plural also. Okay. And again, they clarify that these are men because it is masculine. So if it's a group of women speaking, we are Romans, you're going to change that ending so it's feminine. Romani, right? With a on the end as a diphthong. And that's going to tell us that's nominative, plural, feminine. So we are Roman women. Okay. And again, in English, we require two words to convey that idea. In Latin, you can convey Roman women with just a single word because you can communicate the gender there in that word. Okay. But plural verb, plural noun. Okay. And then because we're working with linking verbs, with to be verbs, the nouns associated with those verbs have to be in the nominative case. Okay. One more example here, then we'll flip the page. Puer et puella sunt boni. Okay, so clarification. Puer, singular, boy, one boy. Et, and puella, singular girl. So you have a singular boy, that's one, and a singular girl, that's two. Now we have plural. So the verb to be, sunt, is plural, they, because it's not just referring to the boy as est, he is, or the girl as she is, est. It's referring to both of them collectively together, which makes it plural. So the verb is then plural, sunt. And then the adjective describing them is going to be plural. And here, like in Spanish, when you have a boy and a girl together, the verb, or excuse me, the noun, or the adjective here, bonus, good, is going to be in the masculine, and that is going to include the girl in that description with the masculine, right? So, puer et puella sunt boni. You're not going to say boni, and you're not going to say bona, as if a neutered plural. You're going to say boni. So it's going to be masculine, and that's going to include the girl in there as well, right? Nominative, plural, masculine, boni, sunt, the singular puer and the singular puella collectively together are then plural. All right. I think that makes sense. Put any questions you may have in the comments below. Substantives. Substantive adjectives. Very simple concept. Let's just look at an example. That's the best way to look at this. So you have bonas saepe laudant. Okay. So if we were to just translate this, okay, I have good, but it's plural, so the goods, and I know it's accusative plural, right? So the goods, accusative plural, and also it's feminine, often laudant. Okay, so just thinking out loud here, this is accusative, so it can't be the subject of laudant. So they, okay, so this is simple. They, and there's no person here. So what do we do? They praise. Often they praise the goods. So it's a substantive. So it's good is an adjective, but when it's presented by itself, in this case as the direct object, it is an implied subject, right? So it's substantive. It has substance to it That is, it's acting like a noun. Even though it's an adjective, we treat it as a noun. For example, it's not the goods, the goodnesses, or it's the good women, right? Women there, of course, is not stated. The word for women is not there. But it is implied in bonas because it is accusative. Well, the women are implied because it's feminine, right? And there's no other noun there to be the direct object for laudant. So bonas has to be the direct object because it's accusative, right? And then the women is implied. So that's what it's. A substantive is an adjective that is being treated like a noun. Okay? Let's look at this here. Multi sunt stulti. Very true. All right. Multi means many. Many what? Well, they don't tell us what, so we have to imply. We know that this is nominative, plural, and masculine. Okay? So, the many, so it's masculine, so we're going to say the many men. It could also mean many boys, right? But we don't, context would tell us, we just interpret men or boys, but it has to be masculine. Many boys, sunt stulti, are foolish, right? So you have two things going on here. We have a substantive, multi, many, right? And the singular would be much, but this is plural, so it's many. The many, what? The implied, the many men or boys. Sunt, plural verb, linking verb, to be, they are, with the plural substantive here. That is an adjective acting like a noun, being treated as a noun, and then being linked to an adjective acting like an adjective. They're just foolish. But notice that this is going to be nominative, plural, masculine also, because it's being linked and as a predicate speaking for the many men, right? So foolish, the stulti, is the predicate adjective for the many. So it's describing the many men. The many men they are what? They're foolish, right? They are. And the singular be is, he is foolish, right? Also predicate there. It's describing, he's speaking for. Describing for. All right. Let's see here. Pueri mala non amants. Okay. Yeah, mala, that's a substantive there. It is it is accusative. It could be nominative because it's neutered in this case. But it only makes sense that it is accusative. So it's accusative, plural, and neutered, right? So again, that a can be confused with feminine, the nominative singular feminine. So context tells us what it is, right? So pueri, okay? So plural boys, and we're confirming that with the plural verb. They love, and then non, they do not love, mala, right? So these boys are not stulti. These boys, they are wise because they do not love mala, bad things, okay? But that is the substantive there, mala. An adjective, the badness, acting like a noun, being treated like a noun. All right, so that's this week's lesson. Pretty straightforward, I believe. If you have any questions, comments, put those in the comments below. And make sure you learn your vocabulary. I always found flashcards to be the best way. I like flashcards. Writing them out by hand helps in the learning process. And there's the rest of your vocab on page 36. Goes over to the next page. Okay. And apparently they're still writing out the full form of the nouns there, right? So you have oculus. Zoom in a little bit. And then instead of just putting the E there to show you the genitive, they're writing out the whole root of the word ocul again, which is fine. Eventually, Wheelock will stop doing that. So go ahead and learn your vocab and then do the exercises. So you have your exercises here as we want to do. Page 37. Go ahead and do 1 through 12. I will provide answers and explanation of these on Patreon. Patreon is just $10 a month, and I provide answers and reviews for all the lessons, all the exercises. And then go ahead and do your Sententia Antiqua. And then the rest of the chapter is just for fun. If you so choose to read on and learn a little bit about Roman history, culture, some etymology. Etymology is very fun. But yeah, read through that on your own if you so desire. And then answers to the exercises and the Sententia Antiqua will be available on Patreon. And again, that is for a $10 a month subscription. And the link for that will be in the description below this video. All right, thanks for listening, and I will see you next week. All right, bye.